Well, the future's a mystery, but what's new in history? Welcome to another episode of What's New in History. I'm with Dan Hörning from Stockholm, Sweden, and I am Bernie from Scranton, PA. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Bernie.
Today, I have an article that I was going to do last time Dan and I recorded, or maybe even before that. I've been holding on to this one.
And this is quite amazing.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Archaeologists found ancient tools that contradict the timeline of civilization. Now that is a pretty heavy title, but it's got a lot of weight to it. It's a lot of...
And it's a very overused title in archaeology. That, this changes everything. But this one actually changes everything.
Yeah, it does change a lot. This kind of reminds me of our Gorillas on Boats episode, actually. So it's something
yes.
along those lines. So the author's name is Tim Newcomb. It was published in February 25th, 2025. What is this from? Oh, it's from Popular Mechanics. That's where it's from, Popular Mechanics. I get a lot of them from there, Popular Mechanics.
Gives you a hint what it's about.
Yeah, so the hint of what this is about is that a stone tool analysis of sites in Southeast Asia provides evidence that this area was a technological leader in seafaring 40,000 years ago.
What?
Yeah, 40,000 years. So that's basically 40,000 BC, right?
This is in the Ice Age, deep in the Ice Age.
This is the Ice Age, and not before the Ice Age. This is an Ice Age.
Yeah, it's deep
right?
into the Ice Age.
Okay.
And it's a very different world. It's long before agriculture or anything like that, long before writing. It's a long time ago.
Yeah. And in Southeast Asia, they say that I think the archaeology does support it, that the people living there were well versed in boat building and open sea fishing. It puts Southeast Asia ahead of Europe and Africa in technological progress 40,000 years ago.
Maybe it's no accident that the Lapita culture comes from this area. The great seafarers of 1000 BC.
Oh, like the Polynesians?
Yes, the pre-Polynesians.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so they've been traveling a long time. And during an ice age, this area is called Wallacea. It's Southeast Asia. It's a group of islands. It's near Australia.
It's pretty much eastern Indonesia.
Yeah, Indonesia. So that probably wasn't frozen over, right? Obviously, it wasn't frozen over.
The big effect in Indonesia is that the sea levels are much lower. So all of the water is tied up in the polar caps.
Right.
So you probably have like 50 to 70 meters lower seas. So the land area here is much bigger than it is today, but it's still islands in the sea.
Right.
You hear all those things about people walking over land bridges, such as the Bering land bridge between Asia and North America. But this is not a find that's about land bridges. It's about traveling on the open ocean.
Right, because even though there was more land, there was not land bridges. And they wonder, I think, how these islands were populated. And now they kind of know how. The archaeological evidence comes in the form of some stone tools that they've been excavated at different sites in the Philippines, in Indonesia, and at another place called Timor-Leste. And it shows a very strong evidence that 40,000 years ago, there was some technological sophistication from these ancient people that rivals even much later civilizations. There's a study, it was published in the Journal of Archaeological Sciences, and these researchers challenged the accepted beliefs that at this Paleolithic time, that all the technical progress was centered in in Africa and Europe. The thing is that so proving that seafaring is tricky because organic wood and fiber, as we know, that would have been used in constructing these sea craft, they rarely survive in the archaeological records. But what they found is stone tools. The most recent discovery shows traces of plant processing that features the, quote, extraction of fibers necessary for making ropes, nets, and bindings essential for boat building and open sea fishing. They also found fishing hooks, gorges, net weights, and the remains of deep ocean fish such as tuna and sharks. So they found the tools.
And that is the Holy Grail. The find of the deep ocean fish remains. If this was not fibers used for traveling on the open ocean, there would be no deep ocean fish remains. They can't get the tuna and the sharks if they don't go out on the ocean.
Right. So what they found is tools, and they found remains of deep ocean ships. So that's pretty convincing to me.
I just did a show on my Swedish history podcast with two of our lead archaeologists in Sweden about the site on an island 8,000 years ago. And this reminds me very much of that find, but that was just 8,000 years ago, not 40,000, where they traveled with sealskin canoes over at least 30 kilometers, that's 20 miles of open ocean. But this find is even more open ocean traveling and much further back in time.
I guess it's just that there wasn't as many people to have as much stuff happening, but that these people were figuring this stuff out a really, really long time ago. We always say that when I come to these really old what's new in histories. This is the same area where they cut the girl's arm off with a rock too, I think. It's kind of Southeast Asia.
Of course, we don't have the boats. We don't have any depictions of the boats. But I have a hard time imagining that these were simple canoes like in Sweden 8,000 years ago, because you can't catch a shark with a small canoe.
I would think not. I've had a hard time catching trout with a small canoe when I used to have a canoe and I used to fish. And those sharks were probably big, because you were talking 40,000 years ago. It was not overfished. They had some big sharks, I'll bet you.
Yeah, just getting a tuna into your canoe is probably a nightmare.
Oh my God, that's another thing I did. I went tuna fishing once, and well, the tuna I caught, first of all, when I hit it, I thought I hooked a Buick or something. It was like the heaviest thing I ever felt, and that was like, I don't know, maybe a 4-foot fish. But some guy had a fish hooked that he couldn't pull in. The thing had to be 10 feet long. I mean, it was enormous. I mean, this is in the 2000s, so could you imagine how big the fish must have been there? And so I bet you you think they tied the two canoes together like the Polynesians did? Maybe they did something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking some kind of catamaran or barge.
It doesn't seem that much of a stretch to like have one canoe and then have two canoes, you know? And then say, hey, we could just put a platform between these two things and stand on it.
And I'm more impressed that they actually catch fish out on the open ocean than that they manage to transport themselves between the islands. But this kind of solves that question as well.
Right.
If you can catch sharks way out on the ocean, you can easily discover other islands and move to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny that they go out so far to catch those big fish, though. They must have been fish close. They could catch with nets, but they're just, humans are like that, like hunt, right? You want to hunt the biggest game and go catch some tuna and catch some sharks.
Yeah, the archaeology guys in the Swedish podcast talked about that these hunters, they choose the strongest males. They went out into the canoes and killed seals. And a seal is a big creature. You get a lot of food from that. So they do it for a couple of months, take their catch back to the main group, and that's way more efficient than just foraging.
Yeah. That's the cool guys too, right? You got to go out. You just get to go. You go hunting out for a couple days. Maybe you make it back, and then you don't have to work again for 3 months.
What really impresses me is how do they navigate? Once you leave line of sight navigation, how do you manage that? And how could they do it 40,000 years ago?
Sometimes you wonder if 40,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago it was just as hard without the tools that we have today. I know the Polynesians use a lot of currents, so I wonder if that also helps. You know, the currents that take you.
Probably, and they could maybe also help you navigate.
Right, so you sort of know by the currents that you get used to. I mean, 40,000 years ago, when you take history that past, you could have things happening for like 3,000 years. You know, it was like 40 to 35,000 years ago. Well, 5,000 years is a lot of time, like to learn stuff. So yeah, I'm going to post this study, and in the study also has a link to the actual study. Like I'll post the article, but the actual study, so you could see that. So basically, they found the tools that are used for making, these kind of things that they have certain notches in them and stuff. They didn't find the actual fibers, but they find like the pollen and the things that they would have grown, the things that are they would have used to make ropes and sails and things like that, and boats. So it apparently seems that the Southeast Asians were navigating around these islands 40,000 years ago, Dan.
Wow. I think there's a lot of things like this left to discover. Because the oldest Homo sapiens, the oldest modern human found is 314,000 years old.
Yeah.
And to imagine that we didn't invent stuff for 300,000 years, and then suddenly we invented a lot of stuff for the last 10, 15,000 years, that has always bothered me. I think people invented stuff, but of course to spread your inventions was impossible with such a small population in a big, big world.
Right. That's a good way to put it. The small population in a big, big world. A lot of these things are probably invented and then, went away, and then invented again and went away. And then eventually people, some of these things are just natural to have, like a canoe is a canoe, right? That's a thing that floats. Huh. Trees are trees. You dig one out and make a canoe out of it. Same like a pyramid.
It seems this fascination for boat building carried on even into our time.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially with the Polynesians. Those people managed to get to Easter Island. And that's quite impressive.
Quite impressive. It just became a cultural thing too, to being like a sailor. Like some like the Greeks were warriors, right? There was, and then to be a thinker was a big deal. And some places were hunters, and being like a seafaring hunter was sort of a thing to do. Like a cultural thing. That's why the Polynesians went to find those islands, I guess. Same thing with these people.
And sometimes they struck gold, like when they found New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a big place with no people.
Right. Right. So, yeah. Like I said, I'll share this. I thought this was very interesting. I know it was a short little episode, but it's super interesting that 40,000 years ago we have some really good evidence for maritime travels in Southeast Asia. So, and you could buy us a coffee on this. What's new in history is not part of a Patreon. So if you are one of our Patreons, these are free episodes. They're free for everybody. If you like what we do, you could log on. You could go into check the links here, the show notes, and buy us a coffee. It's, I think, $5. You put it in. It's like a one-time thing, and if you like us, you could buy us a coffee right there.
Please do.
Please do. I need a little caffeine.
Me too. Coffee is really expensive now.
Is it? Oh, it's going to be tariffed here.
No, it was expensive even before the tariffs because there was crop failure.
Oh, that's true.
We are recording this in April 2025, so right now coffee prices are through the roof.
All right, that's enough.
That's
better
enough.
let you guys go. Thanks for helping me with this episode, Dan. If anybody
Thank you.
else has any What's New in Histories you want to suggest, that'd be great. If anybody wants to like do What's New in Histories with me, you know, I would love to do it. That's how I met Dan. So I just love to do the episodes with other people. I know I could do them myself, but I like to have somebody to talk to. So if anybody has a What's New in History, want to do it with me, send us an email, and I'll probably do it with you. If you suck, I'll just edit you out. So don't worry.
Speak to you next time.
See you next time, Dan. Cheers.
Cheers.
So the most recent discovery shows I'll take that again.